At 10, I moved to Bremen. When I was 7, my favorite sister and her brother was born.
At the same time. Her brother. No, on the same day. On the same day.
And that was still in Hanover. And then in Bremen, we lived until I was 15, and then I moved to Kiel. And at age 16, I went to the United States as a foreign exchange student, and that's when a whole other chapter started.
Oh, that's a great chapter.
I did for
Some of us are really glad that chapter started.
Yeah.
1 week?
I am too.
1 week she dated Dan Edson? Only 1 week?
one time.
Oh, one time.
One time. And it wasn't a big success, but I'm not going to go into that.
Did you ever yell at your guidance counselor who sent you to Mansalona, Michigan?
No.
What wasn't a big success? I'm sorry.
She dated Dan Edson 1 time for 1 day.
Thank God.
And that you start with the right guy.
With everybody I knew.
Mark was the social coordinator of our high school class.
And
He set me up
nobody-
with about 5 different guys.
Nobody could get diverse us. Because the guys just aren't trying hard.
She was. So she was prude at 15.
So,
This is what we're
anyway,
learning.
Then she moved, after a year in Mansalona, back to Kiel.
Yep. To
Well,
Kiel.
wait a second. We missed that whole year in Mansalona.
Well,
Well, you
not a
don't
whole
want
lot.
details.
What happened? Did you get first
Mansalona
base?
finished 4th in the whatever
You don't want to know
whatever Moon Man league you guys had.
You don't
Yeah.
want to know that.
You don't need to know that.
This is my conference northern Tennessee.
Okay, then what?
Okay, and then in 1970, you came and visited me in Germany.
How many years
So
after?
that's when she's 18.
I was in 1967. I was an exchange student. 67, 68, 70. You came over and spent
No,
the summer with us.
68, 69.
And the whole family looked out of the window to look who is coming. I remember this.
And how disappointed were you?
Oh, wait a minute. We didn't just look out the window.
We just fall out.
We went to Terracina in Italy and spent.
Yes, but the first day you came, we were all looking at the window,
you were.
and we just nearly fall down because we wanted to see how will he look.
How did you make it with the first baseman?
No.
That's the question.
We're not here to talk sports. No. But the
Changed
family,
immediately.
the family's first thought was Robert Redford. Look at this guy. He's like Robert Redford. You know, that shock of blonde hair, red beard. Oh,
Did you have a beard then?
I think so. Yes. Yeah, I did.
Oh,
Yeah.
like 18.
18, 19.
Yeah. No, 17.
When you were 17, when you had a beard?
Yeah.
You had a beard?
Wow.
And we
That was
went
very
we went
sophisticated.
And then we went to Terracina in Italy for 6 weeks. The twins flew. The rest of us had to
For
drive.
3 weeks. And we rested in his house.
At your house?
My parents' house. Your parents' house.
Because whenever my parents wanted to get rid of the twins, they dropped them off at his parents' house.
What a nice guy. My parents.
He's not the
I
guy.
didn't participate.
You're part of the family.
I was always out at university.
I see.
I haven't been at home at the time.
The first thing that Richard taught me as a medical student, pre-med, like in high school, was that if you ate black bread and toothpaste, you'd get a fever, and you didn't have to go to school that day.
And really, you didn't need the black bread.
And it works,
That's
right?
gonna drive her crazy.
Well, I don't know. I never tried, but it impressed me.
It looks better with the fish than sugar.
Okay, so then I left after that summer, and you stayed, and you finished your Abitur
but I don't want her to know I'm recording.
Right. In what?
in Kiel, in the city.
Okay. And then I went to, no, you came in 1972, spent a year in Hamburg,
You started university.
in Hamburg, and Mark came, and he met Jean Pretty at the
Oh,
This is the beginning of
Good to
trouble.
high school.
At the Institute
It was
for
now a triangle.
Mark's still trying to fix Ursula up.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
the funny part of that story is that Gene and his wife at the time thought that there was not a chance that Mark and I would make it because we were fighting all the time.
Gene and I, after Gene and I went to school learning German until noon, and then he lived outside of 12:30. He lived outside of Hamburger Way, so he came back to our apartment. It was an apartment that was the Office for Youth for Understanding Germany, and we were part of a group of people who lived there. Gene came back and we played Yahtzee for 8 hours, drank a case of beer, and
No,
smoked.
he introduced you to wine.
No, at the time, no, we were
Not
still
that, not
drinking.
at
He
that
did?
point.
No, we
not
were
then.
drinking Host Mead. A case of beer and 4 packs of cigarettes
Windsor.
every day. Chemotherapy.
Oh, damn it. Now you have to know that Gene was there to finish his dissertation on phenomenology.
Yeah.
I still don't know.
There were extended phases where I didn't make much progress.
That year was one of them. And then,
That was
in
1973. I went to Michigan State, and in 1974, both of us actually graduated from Michigan State.
You were only at Michigan State.
Wait, I thought Dad was.
And that was the time when I came over
Wait,
to visit
Lars-
you.
Hey,
Lars-
last question.
Ask the question.
You had your really bad freshman year, and then I thought Mom came over your sophomore year and straightened you out.
Yeah.
True.
Ah, true.
I know it.
It's true.
But you were only there for not even 2 years. What was bad about your freshman year?
Yeah, what was bad about it? It was great. Nothing was bad about my freshman year. But I had a 1.4 grade point.
Everything else was great, though.
It was a wonderful year.
That in itself is a sign that it must have been a very good year.
I think it was. I'm not sure.
You don't remember, but
As far as I know, it was a great year.
Nowadays we have Facebook to tell us that it was a great.
Yeah. So in 1974,
Henson's just
Then
dogging your dad's
Richard.
GPA.
and
Look at how much fun he's having with this 1.4.
Yeah. Who did you?
Oh my goodness.
It was Lise from Canada, from Quebec City.
Quebec City,
Yes.
Quebecois.
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 Yeah, Quebecois. Yeah.
And so then,
Joual.
and we had a wonderful time at Michigan State.
That's it.
And Lise left her address, and Ursula and I hopped on a Greyhound bus and spent 26 days for $99 going from Traverse City to Chum's Corners to Chicago to Omaha to San Francisco to the way to San Jose to Los Angeles to El Paso to New Orleans to Washington D.C. to New York City to
Oh my
Quebec City, where
We
You proposed.
visited Lise,
Okay.
who was in the middle of a Quebecois underground meeting at the time. They had to take a vote whether or not they could speak English to us because that was against their religion at the time. They decided we were not involved in their political conflict, so they could talk to us in English. And then they showed us Quebec City, and we had a wonderful time in Quebec City. Only to go on to Toronto.
Toronto and
When
up
was this in 70?
summer of '74.
Okay.
I want your children to understand that they did all of this with $99.
Well,
That's
Yeah,
why
it's,
the ticket.
it's about 40 years. It's about 40 years ago. Huh?
I understand, it's still $990.
27 days, we slept, I think, 9 nights on the bus,
Is that
8
light really
nights
annoying, do you
with
think?
friends, and the other nights in a hotel.
Good night.
We got to San Francisco after 3 days on the bus, checked into a hotel at 6 o'clock in the morning, right next to the bus station. And the man said, for how many hours? And we were too naive to even understand.
It's too funny.
what he was talking
He's so excited.
about. We said, well,
When your dad said you had a
the
1.4,
whole
he goes,
day and night.
explains too.
And
He
it's
said,
like, whoa, hey buddy.
"Yeah, a 4.8 scale. He only had a 1."
Gross.
I missed something.
That was more than they wanted.
I missed.
Children don't
I
like
was
to hear
totally
these things about children. Do not
Well, it wasn't really
Children
the
don't
case.
think that their parents do
Your
it,
parents?
You know? One day I had to tell my kids, we did it twice.
Wait
It
a
what?
minute, you and I did this?
No. Henson doesn't know what you did.
We've done it twice. We have 2 children.
So anyway, then we graduated.
74, we went back to Cologne, and we actually had Sylvester at Tante Margaret's, and I don't know if you were there or not.
Matthias.
Quick
We
question
were not-
on there.
We were not very conscious at the time.
Who were your parents?
My parents were Josie and Udo.
Tante Rosie and Uncle Udo.
Yeah.
Yes. Oma's sister.
Right. And I met them several
Yeah.
times, but that had never come up, and she said Santa Margaret's. I didn't know if.
Okay.
Margaret was the first one, Josie is the second one, and Annalise the third one.
Okay.
And Josie's my mother, and mother of my sister Ulrike.
So
Yep.
New Year's Eve at in Cologne at Santa Margaret's house because it's also her birthday.
Yeah.
And then we moved to Hamburg, where Mark became a social worker, and I went back to school.
Starting in January of '75. In the summer of '75, we went to Denver with the Friends.
That's right.
To
Plural
meet
at this
your
point?
folks and Johanna.
Yes.
And in the fall of 1975, Johanna, yeah, we got married.
Oh yeah, that whole marriage thing.
How can you skip it?
Ja, kleine Fußnote.
Because didn't you get married because your mom was coming to visit?
Yes, and we were sitting, we had the most wonderful bathtub in the world.
I heard.
Huge.
Don't start the story with me.
bathtub.
Don't. You were sitting in the bathtub. Mom was.
Yeah, knocking
In the
on
other
the
room.
door.
Knocking on the door, your mother's coming, let's get
She
married.
said, your mother's coming, why don't we get married? And I was fumbling.
She asked you, Mark, she asked you to pop the question, right?
Yeah, right. And I said, and she took off.
No, you sick? Okay.
Well, why not? And she ran down to the telephone booth, which was half a block.
Because we did not have a telephone.
We didn't.
You know
And
something?
called her mother and said,
No
we're
cell phone.
getting married.
I have never heard this story before, but boy, that is the sneakiest thing that I've ever
I didn't understand. She said that to your mother?
No, she called her mother.
She called
from
her
the telephone
mother.
His
booth.
mother was coming to Germany to visit them. And so she thought, well, we might as well practice. It's so practical. Let's just get married while your mom's here. So she says, let's get married while your mom's here. And then he agrees, so she runs down and calls her mom and says, we're getting married.
Then it was a done deal.
Yeah.
I love it.
She knew what she wanted and she
It
got it.
skip over 1972, where we got on the train, which was the same trip around Europe that we made around the United States in a Greyhound bus. We did it on the train. And, pardon?
Portugal.
We went to Portugal and visited Johanna and her parents in Viana do Castelo.
I think it's appropriate that the only thing between me and your dad is a ton of wine glasses.
Little girls that Ursula
Yes.
knew from her. was on the 4th floor of a walk-up. And Gene Fricky, hard to believe, was confused on the dates when we were coming. And we showed up,
Hudson loves
and he was frying up potatoes and peeing in the sink. And we walked in, and he said, if you knew how difficult things are here, you'd understand. And I said, well, I don't know, but I have to go to the bathroom. And he said, it's a half a floor down. Yes, it was.
You're getting past it.
I went
No.
Half a floor.
a half a floor, and it was a classic French bathroom where there's a hole in the floor and 2 footprints around it.
Yeah.
So the sink gave you a bigger target.
I dropped trowel, squatted, did my business, stood up, pulled the chain, and the whole floor flooded. And my pants were still around my ankles. And I thought, I have to go a half a floor up the staircase. And you and Ursula were really sympathetic.
The apartment was condemned. It was in a condemned building. There was a very nice kitchen, bedroom, and living room, and a hallway. And this apartment cost me 19 euros a month.
Not euros, francs.
No, it was 39 francs. Oh, 38
In Paris.
about $20 a month.
That's it. It was condemned. The roof leaked.
It was great. It had a refrigerator, standard American sized refrigerator. Everything was in a double bed. In the living room there was a stereo.
Hudson. Wonderful. Next is going to be
Do you remember the
absolutely
and all that Johnson can remember is the damn toilet.
bring some pistachio. And let's watch a movie.
So,
And watch a movie. It's absolutely
1974
wonderful.
we moved back. We went back to school.
75, we got married. And the reason why we got married was because Katja was born, and we decided it'd be a good time to have a child. And what did you say the day after we got married? You were sick and tired of being a social worker, and you wanted to become a winemaker. And we certainly wanted.
That's quite true.
Well, the third day after,
Oh, that's right. The next day after we got married, we went on our honeymoon with your mother and
Artist Springs.
In Harbor Springs? No, to Stockholm.
To Stockholm.
Okay.
No, actually, the day after we got married, we went up to Kiel, and there are pictures of people sticking out of the top of VW bugs on the expressway up to Kiel. And we, that's when you did the analysis of Katja. And said, this child is cramping, like having a seizure. You remember that? We long walked in the park. And then that night, we were taking the train to Stockholm for our honeymoon with my mother and her friend Artist Grant. And we went to the train station, and lo and behold, that was the one day of the week that the train didn't stop in Kiel. And so Ursula's father loaded us in his car and drove us to Hamburg. And he drove 160 somethings an hour. And Artist Grant,
Slamming the brake on every minute or two.
Artist Grant, who's afraid of everything, wet her pants. Because she'd never ridden 160 anything as an hour. And that was terrible. We caught the train, went to Stockholm. My mother bought the table for us for our wedding present that we have in the living room today.
From IKEA,
From the first IKEA in the world. Not the little round. Okay, so then.
1 minute.
Yeah, okay.
I don't remember.
Your mom.
After, well, okay, then we.
Or
When on your honeymoon.
Yeah, they're all the social.
And then we decided
to become a winemaker.
Because I can just, will you hold it now?
This isn't his story.
She got her degree, her master's degree in Hamburg,
and we moved to the Palatinate.
and we moved to the Palatinate. And she ran 5 psychiatric units at the State Mental Hospital in Klingenmünster. And was terribly upset with some orderlies who, when she found out that there had been a serious accident transporting patients, and she said, I have to know this stuff. You have to tell me this stuff. And they said, we did tell you this stuff. And you smiled and said, okay, because she couldn't understand anything.
It's shaking. It's shaking.
I'm not here.
I'm not here.
Dialect.
Well, you must be because I didn't chicken.
They use a lot of French in their languages on the Alsatian border.
Okay.
And it's a mixture of German and French. And I didn't always get everything. But you know what? We're supposed to stop being out here at 11 o'clock.
We're
so-
just supposed to not be loud. You can finish the story.
All right, here's the rest of the story.
Now you
Here's the rest of the
rest is fast.
75. We lived there until
82.
82, until Anna was born.
Juniorette.
And then we
Rat came along.
emigrated to the United States in 1983.
Ursula researched, you'll find this hard to believe, but she researched hospitals in the whole state of Rhineland-Westphalia.
In
to
where?
find
The
a
state
state
in Germany they lived
in
in.
Germany.
Yeah.
To find the
To find the
perfect hospital.
perfect hospital for giving birth to our first child.
I believe it.
Now, I know it's hard to believe that Ursula would research something.
I interviewed probably 10 obstetricians before I picked the
Good
one.
for you.
And
It paid off. She turned out well.
she turned out
It
okay.
was wonderful.
So we moved to the United States when Hannah was 10 months old. And then I finally got a job in the United States, and just as soon as I got a job, I realized I was pregnant with Lars. And then we started,
Not that it wasn't planned.
not exactly the timeline, but it was good.
Well planned.
Those things happen sometimes.
Now,
What was planned?
the
Yeah,
child,
that's
at
right.
least he was planned,
Yeah.
which is more than
Some of our
Matthias.
children were totally spontaneous.
And still is.
Still is, right. So 2 years later, Matthias came along. And we always said he was a surprise. but
And
the
Grandma
best surprise
Johnson
we
was
had.
thrilled.
Grandma Johnson said, why are you calling me? Well, we have news. I know what this is going to be. I know what this is going to be. Yes, Ursula's pregnant. That's the worst thing you could have ever told me.
And she did not.
Matthias has heard this 100 times.
Yep, and she did not talk to us for 3 months.
But
Oh my God.
But at least
it
she
didn't take long after his smiling face appeared on the horizon.
As a matter of fact, she was in the hospital when he was born.
That's right.
But and when I was born,
She was in Hawaii.
She was in
Yeah.
Hawaii.
having a lovely time. Didn't want to be
And the
there.
rest of the story is really.
Yeah, you know the rest of it.